Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, I was wondering if this was going to start happening again, and if it was perhaps a time of year thing. But remember last year we had lots of cases of water disappearing, the ocean disappearing and retreating. And so it's happened again, this time in the Gulf of Thailand. And as this says, the strange phenomenon is back. A strong water receding was reported around several beaches situated in the Gulf of Thailand. According to residents, such a strong tidal phenomenon with the water disappearing over more than 2 kilometers away wasn't experienced in the last 20 years as far as they can remember. And here we could see the water is gone for over 2 kilometers from the shore. Extremely unusual, just dry seabed. And so where did it go? Now last year we saw this in South America at numerous places. We saw it in Peru, we saw it in Ecuador, we saw it down in Uruguay, we saw it in Brazil, we saw water going in to South Africa and southwestern Africa. So it appeared that when it receded from South America, it was being displaced over in that direction. The water from the area of Peru and Ecuador, somewhere just out into the Pacific. We saw local instances of this as well in the UK and also in France. So very, very interesting phenomenon, and apparently it's somehow tied into the seasons, because we didn't really have any cases of this in the spring or over the winter, but last summer to fall we were seeing this on a regular basis, and it was just so unusual and so weird. And to be completely honest with you guys, this phenomenon was freaking me out down here a little bit, because it gets you thinking about, potential for tsunami. If the water can go out, it could come back in. And so as you could see, just all dry seabed. So scientists say, well, it must be created by offshore storms, even when there are no strong storms being recorded. So very unusual, very, very unusual. And this is the first one we've seen this summer, and we shall see if this is just the beginning, or maybe we won't have the same amount of cases of this that we had last year, where it seemed like it was every single week there was a new location, and multiple times sometimes we would see this in different areas. So it is back. And this is one of the more things that feels a little bit more ominous to me in many ways. And we have heavy rains causing deadly floods and landslides in Mexico, and we saw the giant crack that's over 1 kilometer long that developed there. And if you remember back, we saw about a month previous a huge one that developed just south of Mexico City as well. And there are cracks also that developed in Arizona, as quite a few of you subscribers out there were pointing out yesterday as well, and in other areas too. And of course we touched on Peru. They were like some of the most ominous ones I saw down in Peru. They were gigantic, and whole villages were kind of being swallowed up by them. And if you've been with me a while, Peru was a place I was considering, and then had many subscribers tell me, no, don't consider Peru. It's going to be too dangerous and the earth changes. And, definitely a mountainous region with a lot of activity. Of course, all these places that are along the Ring of Fire are going to have a lot of activity. You're going to have the volcanoes, you're going to have earthquakes. We know that. It's a given. And now we have the floods, which are, they're hitting everywhere and anywhere, as we see every day now. And they're just not typical floods, as you see this elderly gentleman in the kayak being basically helped out of the water, and it's just a common scene we're seeing. Over 40 neighborhoods reported flood damage in the city of Reynosa. 3 people died, in the floods since June 2nd. 2 of them in separate incidents, as they have accidentally touched an electric cable, and one when he drowned in his car. So this is happening all over. And it's just incredible, the power of these rainfalls. Something else that would be a complete game changer, as we know, and this is talking about the Yellowstone geyser activity. It's been increasing, and it's sparking conversation of a supervolcano eruption and the chances of that. And this is out of CBS in New York. So not typically something that's sensationalist, although obviously mainstream. So a historically dormant geyser in Yellowstone Park has been anything but dormant recently, and visitors can't get enough of the water show. It's also sparked conversations about whether a super eruption could soon be expected in the region. Steamboat Geyser is now the world's largest active geyser. It's erupted 10 times in the last 3 months, but it wasn't always so exciting. Before this year, it erupted 10 times in nearly 30 years. So it's gone from 10 eruptions in 30 years to 10 eruptions in 3 months. There's no way you couldn't look at that and not say that is a substantial uptick. And so according to officials, the activity is spurred on by a large magma field sitting just below the park. And it's something that we want to be aware of for sure, because if Yellowstone went, there'd be virtually no place in the continental U.S. that really wouldn't see something from it. It would be just a massive event, and would definitely instantly take us into a nuclear winter, scenario. And if we look at what's going on with Yellowstone, we do see a decent amount of activity. 1, 2, 3, 5. We had 5 earthquakes there yesterday, 6 the day before, and at least 5 the day before that. So it's been fairly steady, fairly substantial. Will it erupt any day? Probably not. Let's hope not, because this would be a complete game changer. And yeah, that would make life very difficult anywhere in the northern hemisphere, anywhere. And so when we take a peek at some of the earthquake activity we see ongoing, this is a little bit larger one for over in the Caribbean plate. It's a 5.1 in Venezuela, as well as quite a bit of activity as usual on the Caribbean plate. We have a 4.5 in Colombia, a 5.1 in Chile, looks like a 5.2 and a 5.4 over in the Solomon Islands, a 4.5 in Tonga, 5.3 in Indonesia, that's very deep. And then let's go take a look at Hawaii, and we shall see that we have 632 earthquakes in a 24-hour period, which is again quite substantial. Hawaii is very active, and yesterday we did have another volcanic eruption, and it was back to 5.3, so back to our favorite number, as we can see some earthquakes a little bit farther out away from the main island here. Now this one's at -3 kilometers, so that one's at about 10,000 feet, probably on the flank of Mauna Loa, and being that high up could always be an indicator of magma flow. And so when we're looking at these, we see the diamond in here, and that's our 5.3 volcanic eruption, 0.3 kilometer depth. And so another eruption at Kilauea, and it just continues with Hawaii, as does the flooding everywhere we look. We were trapped in our own house. Flooding in Prince George frustrates residents, and this is Virginia. Virginia is getting pounded with floods, pounded, as well as many other areas as well. Flooding collapses foundation, causes gas line rupture at Barron County home, and this is in Indiana. And over here, severe weather, flash flooding, still a threat from the plains to the mid-Atlantic. And more than 200 reports of severe weather in that area. More thunderstorms, strong storms are going to fire up again in much of the south and the east. And severe weather is expected from Texas to Georgia, as well as from Virginia to New Jersey. Damaging winds, large hail, brief tornadoes are all possible, as we really are seeing some new interesting weather phenomenon developing. Flooding at Richmond temporarily closes the airport and traps several drivers as well. Heavy rain triggers flash flooding across central Virginia, as we were talking about as well, and many people getting stuck in cars and having to be rescued. And if we jump off and check out something a little different, this is out of Russia Today, and it's talking about Trump's goal to keep China from using the nuclear, quote-unquote, option of dumping U.S. debt, because that's the big noose over the head that China has over the U.S. as far as the holding of debt. Now, we've seen Russia dump a ton. We've seen other countries dumping a ton as the trade wars are going on, the tariff wars, however you want to call this. We'll look back at this period and realize that it was a very important period and fundamental in reshaping the way things are going to operate in the future. So this is all new when we start hearing what they're talking about here. And I'm taking it with a grain of salt, as I would you guys too, because we'll see. But I wouldn't trust anything, and we'll see if there's truth to this. But anyway, it says President Donald Trump is cutting U.S. military spending. Okay, I'll be shocked. To be less exposed to the skyrocketing interest rates that would become unavoidable when China opts to dump the U.S. Treasury bonds. And so this is from Max Kaiser talking to Russia Today. To understand U.S. trade policies, and in particular Trump's policies on China, from Trump's point of view, you have to think like Trump, the host of RT's Kaiser Report explained. When Trump took office, he inherited the biggest debt load that any country has ever accumulated, as had every president before him. So it's just been an ongoing thing going back, at least to the time of Bill Clinton, because at that point then we actually had a balanced budget for a brief period of time. But everything has been spiraling out of control really since 9/11 and the incessant wars. So he also inherited a military budget that eats up 50% of America's annual tax revenues of $1.5 trillion. 50% of all taxes are going to the military. Is that insane or what? And especially when it outpaces like the next 10 countries combined. It almost outpaces the entire world combined besides the U.S. And so we see the U.S. has been used as the corporate policeman. It's undeniable. And the corporate military. According to Kaiser, after taking the helm as president, Donald Trump realized it was vital to reduce defense spending in order to pare the huge U.S. debt, but he's actually increased spending, and that's why I so kind of doubt this, because we have the biggest military budget ever now. And as we saw yesterday, we're also dropping more bombs in a time when you got to question, where are we dropping these bombs? You know, there's not the activity on a big scale going on that we saw in the middle of the Afghan war, the Iraqi war, and even Syria. So if we're dropping more bombs than ever right now, where are they? And if you remember some of my earlier reports earlier this year, we were talking about the fact that the United States militarily was in 90% of the countries in the entire world. It was something like 167 out of 182 we had a military presence in. Hello. What does that say? So this goes on to say he looked at the geopolitical chessboard and saw that the low-hanging fruit in terms of saving money is America's huge military spending in South Korea, said Kaiser, stressing that after the historic summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, the U.S. would start pulling military presence out of the region. The U.S. president is currently arranging deals with Saudi Arabia and Israel in preparation for the U.S. pulling out of the Middle East as well. Kaiser added, highlighting that Trump had previously signaled to Germany that U.S. would cut its military presence in NATO there too. That brings us to China and the nuclear option they have of dumping U.S. treasuries to financially attack America. This is their one big play. Trump knows it, and he's been protecting the U.S. against it, the financial commentator said. Downsizing the Pentagon, according to Kaiser, will shrink U.S. debt, diminishing the possibility of Chinese financial attack via dumping of U.S. bonds. And, of course, I would be thrilled and all for it if he would do that. So that would really be a ray of hope in all this. And let's hope that this is all accurate, because it is also a very, very smart move. But I haven't seen it because the military spending has simply increased. By reducing its debt load, the U.S. becomes a smaller target and less exposed to the skyrocketing interest rates that would accompany a Chinese multi-trillion treasury bond dump. You know, it could end up being like Venezuela. Additionally, China's internal debts are harder to cut without causing a more generalized, across-the-board economic wipeout, giving rise to severe, unpredictable social unrest. The commentator said that cutting the Pentagon budget in half will cut the stock market in half and cause a short and sharp recession in the U.S. And many people are waiting for the big one to hit as far as that goes, the financial Armageddon that we've been talking about. And we'll see. And perhaps that's all part of this plan as well. However, the economy can rapidly recover if Trump allocates part of the defense spending cut dividend to stimulus programs, pushing credit opportunities for small and medium-sized enterprises and infrastructure. And of course, our infrastructure is a joke compared to so much of the Western world. If you look at the infrastructure in Japan or in Western Europe, it's just so far superior on the average. According to Kaiser, China's stock market will also be cut in half. However, the country's government, in the absence of a fully developed consumer economy, will have to fall back on its tried and true mercantilist policies of exporting its way to growth by pegging its currency at below market rates, which means holding, not selling, U.S. dollars. In the end, Trump wins. China's growth rate is cut sharply. But it keeps going without a revolution. Germany is free to partner with Russia in a post-NATO world. Long overdue. IMO. And over in the Middle East, the oil is running out, so they're transitioning to solar, says Kaiser. So I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying I trust it or believe it, but up to you guys to make your own decisions, and please do. Leave comments too to let me know what you think of that. I just found that very interesting. Snow down under. Australia ski resorts are celebrating the best start to the season in 18 years as winter is getting underway in the southern hemisphere. And New Zealand's winters could tell us whether the Southwest's next winter will be wet or dry, a new study is showing. Cooler water temperatures near New Zealand will equate to basically more winter storms coming on through, following the jet stream pattern, and we shall see. It's definitely a changing climate for sure. And one of the devastating effects has been French wine, which I so adore in so many ways. France eases the rules on wine stocks to temper weather threat. So French vineyards will be allowed under new rules to hold back more of their production each year to protect them in case harvests are damaged by extreme weather, including storms and drought. And that move comes after a series of fierce hailstorms battered fields across France in May, the latest in a series of weather-related losses that many growers attribute to climate change. So and there's more important crops too than the wine crops that are getting damaged, as we've seen. And I would definitely check out Ice Age Farmer. Christian does a great job, and he has an ongoing map that's always showing what crop losses we are experiencing and places of note in regards to that. And it's definitely something that is going to impact us very strongly soon. So this is just to give you some ideas on what you could do for homemade toothpaste, which is something that I love to do as well. And I found them to be very effective. And so this is Dr. Axe, which is a pretty cool site. And what you want to get away from is the artificial flavorings, artificial colorings. Those things have been shown to create inflammation in the body as well as other issues. You definitely want to get away from fluoride. As it says here, the ADA swears this stuff prevents cavities, but recent studies suggest the opposite may be true. Plus, it has a lot of nasty side effects. And there's so much more negative to so many of the mass-produced toothpastes. So you could really take care of your teeth very simply just by coconut oil, baking soda. Really, you just need those two things. Then you could add in different essential oils, such as peppermint, just for taste, tea tree, which will be great for your gums and also getting rid of some of the negative bacteria as well. And there's a lot of other things you could add, like over here, bentonite clay. This finely powdered product is mildly abrasive. It's alkaline, so it helps neutralize excess acid in the mouth, full of trace minerals, and it helps to draw toxins out of the body. So if you have silver feelings, you may want to avoid the clay, as the drawing property could also draw out mercury. And it gets into some other things in here as well, and I will have all the links for you guys as well. And you could do variations on this, but you could get a very natural, very inexpensive toothpaste that you could just make at home. And I had figured it out before, and literally I think about 50 cents worth that I made at home lasted well over a month. So if I go to the store and get something, I'm going to get like a Tom's or one of those other natural ones that are fluoride free, and typically spend like at least $4, if not $5 or $6, for something that's going to last half the time. So the other thing I want to touch on, and this was sent in by Peter Verhoeven. Thank you, Peter. And it's so true. Your government never lies to you, ? So the USA sold this product till 1940, when the United States government suddenly decided everybody needs to take in this product. So, and this is fluoride. So sodium fluoride was sold as an insecticide, effective against cockroaches, water bugs, lice. Big label, poison. Next thing, hey, we're throwing it in your water supply. The same time the Nazis are said to have used it, and the Nazis did. They put it in the water supply to dumb down people and to make them just less aware and more easily manipulated. It also will act as a population control, because it does cause a host of issues, as you can see over here. Some side effects could include cancer, brain damage, bone weakness. It goes on, changing the hormones like estrogen and testosterone level, damaging the stomach, joint problems, skeletal fluorosis, osteoarthritis, accelerates osteoporosis, lowers IQ, memory loss, lack of motivation, apathy, passivity. Exactly what you want in, zombies, slaves. Inhibits melatonin production, and melatonin's a feel-good hormone. Impairs immune system, and big, attacks your pineal gland. So you will be in the dark and not have a clue to all the different things going on around you in other dimensions. Kidney stones, kidney failure, lowers sex drive, makes you dumb, kills brain cells, infertility, sedative, accelerates the aging process, attacks the thyroid. How many thyroid issues do you see in the greater population? It's huge. Shortens lifespan. It just goes on and on and on. Damages the DNA, Alzheimer's, autism, makes you docile and obedient. So, not a good thing. Not a good thing. And the Nazis put it in the water to control people. Operation Paperclip. If you guys aren't familiar with that, that's when we brought so many Nazi scientists over here. Some actually headed up NASA. So we bring the Nazis and their theories into the country, and then we end up going ahead and doing what Hitler did and put fluoride in the water to make everybody more docile and obedient, as well as decrease their ability to sense other dimensions and by attacking their pineal gland. So we could see that, you know, did the Nazi ideas die with Germany, Nazi Germany? No, they were incorporated into what we have now. And that's pretty obvious. So I thought this was something good to talk about, my friends. So as always, please do thumbs up to support the channel. Go ahead and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you click the bell so you get all the notifications. The powers that be have unsubscribed so many people. I get more people every single day saying, you know what, I was unsubscribed too. So definitely do check your subscription and share with as many people as possible so we can wake up as many people as possible to all the things that are going on in our world, so they could prepare and be ready when the crap hits the fan locally. And as we could see, the crap is hitting the fan everywhere, all over. And you know, we've been blessed here in Florida the last maybe month now with pretty normal weather, but you know, I know it's going to change. It's just a matter of time. It's easy to get lulled to sleep when these things aren't happening in your backyard, but they could arrive very shortly with everything that we're seeing and all the great earth changes that we're now right in the middle of. So my friends, as always, may you be blessed with love, light, peace, happiness, and abundance, and kept safe always. Namaste, and God bless.